I'm Jenny. I've got Dylan with me. Hi, Dylan.
Hi.
Today we're going to discuss health issues when using computers. Now, Dylan, we know that we use a lot of small print often on screens, and those screens are emitting light.
Yeah.
So what sort of things should we do to avoid too much eye strain?
Well, I think, many of our devices nowadays are emitting light, and a lot of them are getting quite small. So perhaps if you are feeling that the font is a little bit too small, put your pride away and enlarge the font. And I know for some of us who are getting on in years, this can be quite a barrier. But if, in all seriousness, if you are finding that things are straining and it's not as clear as you would expect it to be, use many of the built-in functions, particularly in browsers and Office document, to make the font just a little bit bigger. Another thing to just bear in mind is to blink. It's amazing that when you're staring at a screen, somehow we forget to blink. So even if you need to make a conscious decision just to keep blinking, what that blinking does is it's our body's way of keeping the eyes well watered. Then there's a really neat rule called the 20-20-20 rule, which basically means every 20 minutes, look at an object about 20 meters away for 20 seconds. And this just helps your eyes just to exercise a little bit. Look at something further afield than the screen right in front of you, and it really just helps reduce some of the strain and tension that can build up in your eyes.
That's useful.
Then some other helpful hints are to position your screen that you're looking slightly down rather than looking slightly up. Looking slightly up often puts a little bit more strain on your eyes than looking slightly down. And I'd say that the last helpful hint is just to be aware of the kind of screen brightness that you're using. Particularly smartphones and tablets will allow you to change the screen brightness. Try and get the screen brightness as bright as a white piece of paper is in the same kind of light conditions. Very often we make the screen too bright or more bright than it needs to be, and that can add to the strain of our eyes. If you are looking at a computer monitor and you have the choice of a computer monitor, use the biggest computer monitor you can find and the highest quality computer monitor that you can find. And then also make sure that your screen's resolution is optimally set. Sometimes you can set the resolution to be higher than the monitor was designed for, or even lower than the monitor was designed for. But what can happen at too high or too low resolutions is that the monitor will start to flicker. Now, you might not be able to perceive or see the flicker, but your eyes and brain certainly can, subliminally. And so if the monitor is not set at the optimal resolution, you can find that your eyes take more strain than they need to.
So how do you know what's optimal?
Well, very often in your monitor settings, it will tell you which is the optimal resolution to use for that particular monitor. And so select that one as often as you can.
Yeah, don't be clever and
Indeed.
try something different.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Dylan is saying, quite a couple of handy hints actually. Settings, looking down, did you say?
Slightly down, yeah.
Than upwards onto your screen. Think about the white piece of paper. I think that's quite useful. And I like that 20-20-20. Every 20 minutes, look away about 20 meters away for about 20 seconds. And that should reduce eye strain.
Yeah.
Now, Dylan, most of us have heard about repetitive strain injuries, and I think that's to do with things that you do with your hands and your wrists.
Yeah.
So won't you please talk to us about that?
Well, one of the most common repetitive strain injuries is called carpal tunnel, and it's an inflammation of the ligaments in your wrist that's the result of moving a mouse around a desk for extended periods of time. Now, it's not something that you have to suffer from. There are certain things that you can do to prevent or reduce the likelihood of those kinds of injuries. Many exercises that you can do throughout the day to just loosen up the joints and make sure that the blood is flowing where it needs to. Anyone that's been on an aeroplane will know that when you're sitting for long periods of time, the blood flow in your body isn't as optimal as it needs to be. So get up and do some of these exercises. And then very simply, when you're typing or using a mouse, make sure that your wrist has some sort of support. And you can often buy mouse pads that have like a little blob of gel that you can rest your wrist on.
Yes.
And very often it's the unsupported wrist while using a mouse or while typing on the keyboard that can result in these kinds of injuries. So make sure that you're sitting in a very comfortable position and that your wrists are supported as often as possible, and you should be fine.
Okay. Do you, just to throw this question out, do you also get those kinds of injuries from using a trackpad?
I'm sure you can, yes. I've never used a trackpad personally. I don't find them very easy to use. But the same kind of motion is involved. And again, if your wrist is constantly unsupported, you're going to have the same sort of problems.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think something similar to this would be other kinds of positions that we assume when we at a computer, and I'm speaking mostly about posture-related things. So what can we do, say, for example, in how we position our screen and various other things to avoid posture problems?
Well, we've mentioned one of them already, and that's to look slightly down
Yes.
at your screen. And it's not just for the eyes, it's also for neck and shoulders. Looking up puts a lot more strain on your neck and shoulders than looking down. The other thing that you should try and do, like we're doing now, is to sit as tall as you can. This kind of position, you're going to have problems. So try and sit as tall and as upright as you can. Try and make sure that your feet are squarely on the floor. So position your chair so that your feet are not dangling or they're not, your chair isn't too low. And then again, like in everything, don't sit for hours in the same position. Get up, move around, at least once every 40 minutes, I'd say.
Gosh, I don't think we do that.
We probably don't do that. And I think we put our physical health at risk if we don't get into the habit of getting up and moving around. And what some people will say is, well, I can't because I'm in the middle of something and I just need to I'm in the flow or I'm in the zone.
Yes.
And very often that's not how flow works. You can't be in the flow for hours at a time. You can't be so focused and so concentrated on something productively for such long periods of time.
Okay.
And I've certainly found that not only does it help my physical well-being to get up and move around, but it can also benefit the mental process. Not necessary to shift tasks completely, but just to give yourself a slightly different angle of looking at the task or looking at the problem that you're trying to solve can do a lot of good for your productivity as well.
Thank you, Dylan. So you see, we're not just trying to be killjoys and telling you to sit up straight and use your keyboard properly and watch how long you stare at the screen. Actually, there are certain things that you should consider for the sake of your health, especially if you're going to be using these gadgets of ours for quite a long time in your life. And I think that is what's going to happen with us. So please take those into consideration. Goodbye for now.